Hello, and thank you for watching this early June 2018 Ag Weather Update, brought to you by Farm Credit Illinois. My name is Eric Snodgrass, and I'm Senior Atmospheric Scientist and co-founder of Agrible Incorporated, and I serve as the Director for Undergraduate Studies in Atmospheric Sciences at the University of Illinois. Well, April really put us through the ringer here. We're looking at a map on the left-hand side that shows the statewide average temperature ranks, and for the state of Illinois, it was the second coldest April we had on record, and our records go back about 124 years. As a consequence of this, if we look at our planting progress, now this is for the whole country, but if we look at our corn planting progress, beginning here in early April, we can see that we had a pretty substantial deficit. That's what you see in this area right in through here between the 5-year average and 2018, which is this solid line, at least through the second week of May. But favorable weather conditions built into the state of Illinois and Indiana and Missouri and Kansas by the time we got into early May, especially in Illinois, and we helped bring the country back up onto our average trend. In fact, now we are ahead of our 5-year average as we move toward the end of May. Now, in the beginning of June. Now let's take a look at what May gave us. You see the map that's over there on the left shows the growing degree day anomalies for May of 2018. What we can really see here was that the atmosphere built into a pattern such that it favored much above average temperatures in the region that I just circled there. And as a consequence, this early and rapid accumulation of growing degree units has really pushed our corn and soybean crops along pretty quickly, especially the corn. In fact, as soon as the corn emerged, it moved through the first few stages, vegetative stages, very quickly, and I think the corn is quite ahead of pace. Now, why I want you to see this is that this region in through here, which is ahead of pace, is going to be compared later in the season to what's going on in the northern Corn Belt, which is through this area right in through here. Now, why I want you to see this is that we should be expecting a very late June, early July pollination time period for a lot of the corn in Illinois, Missouri, and Indiana, and also back into Kansas. But when you get back up here into the northern Corn Belt, they may be 3, maybe 4 weeks behind the corn that you see there in Illinois. So it's quite important to see that difference as we move forward. But whereas April was one of our coldest Aprils on record, you watch, as soon as the data come in here in another few days or so here at the beginning of June, we'll probably find that May was maybe one of our warmest on record, if not the warmest on record for parts of Illinois. Now, in terms of precipitation, look at what we've seen here. This is the last 30 days of precipitation valid on the 3rd of June. So we're looking back almost to the entire month of May. What we can see is that there were pockets of Indiana and some regions in Illinois where we saw below average total precipitation. Now, what ended up happening is we had a hit or miss weather pattern. We had some folks that got an enormous amount of rainfall from these individual thunderstorms, while others were missed out. We then had Tropical Storm Alberto that kind of took a track just like this and brought some much needed rains, especially to east central Illinois, helping the farmers out in that location. But overall, it's not been, for the state of Illinois, a really wet spring, especially even to our friends to the east over here in Indiana. Now, some pockets, like I said, got hammered, like this region in kind of north central Illinois near Peoria. They got absolutely doused with rainfall. Now, why I want to pay close attention to this is for a couple of reasons. One, we're dry south and west of Illinois. We're very wet south and east. And we're also wet kind of in the high plains in this area up here. And this is a very important pattern to pick up on as we move throughout this forecast video. So what are we looking at over the next 10 days? Well, as we move through, the second week of June here, one of the things that we're really focusing in on is this temperature pattern. And it's going to look something like you see over in the left panel. Both the long-range European model and the GFS, which is the US model, which is the one we're looking at here, are favoring a ridge that really establishes itself right here in the middle part of the country. Now, when that happens, we tend to get flow around the ridge that looks something like this. And where we are here in the state of Illinois, that gives us what we call northwest flow. That's flow that comes out of the northwest. Now, given that the Gulf of Mexico will be wide open here in the next few days, getting us in toward the middle of this week, we're going to be seeing an abundant amount of moisture kind of moving up into this region. And as a consequence, we should be watching this area for ridge-riding thunderstorms as we move through the next 10 days in the month of June. That really gets us to about June, maybe getting out close to June 20th. So I'm going to be watching this very, very carefully because these ridge-riding thunderstorms in through this area can absolutely save a crop when we do have some added heat in the system. So this is what we're watching in the short term. Now, one of the big features we have to pay attention to is the fact that drought did linger here in the Four Corners states and through parts of the South Central Plains. And because that drought is still there, we're going to have to watch it as we move throughout June, July, and August. And here's the big reasons why. What I did was I went back and I grabbed the 13 driest years in the South. And the South here is defined as Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. When I found those 13 driest years from March through August historically, I wanted to know what happened in the following June, July, August. And basically, this is what we saw. The ridge tended to set up right here, basically from eastern Texas up through North Dakota, maybe right there on the Minnesota-North Dakota border. Now, that's too close for comfort for us in Illinois. What it does is it puts most of the heat, though, in the South Central Plains, although in those years, Illinois carried a warm bias. Where was it driest? Well, it was driest in the Central Plains, but also in the lower Mississippi River Valley. And as a consequence, Illinois was dry. In seven of these 13 years, Illinois had below trend yields. And for the 6 years that are not included in that, they were either right on trend or just slightly above, which means we favored below trend yielding years when there was drought that survived May in the Central Plains. So we must keep a very, very close eye on the position of the ridge, because if it moves at all to the east, that will absolutely scorch Illinois and cause us to go into drought. But if it slides west, that sets up for very, very favorable weather conditions for Illinois in June, July, and August. Now let me show you another thing here. What I did was I made a map that shows you the correlation around the Midwest with ridging and heat in this part of the world with global skin temperature. That means it's ocean temperatures where we're over ocean and surface temperatures where we're over land. Now what I want you to pick up on here is that this pattern right here, cool sea surface temperatures along the west coast of the United States and cool sea surface temperatures that extend from the Baja of California right out into the open Pacific Ocean. If the waters are cool there, we tend to ridge out over the Midwest and it gets very, very hot in the Midwest states. Now, why are we bringing this up? Well, currently, this is what our sea surface temperatures look like. And while we do have some cooler water right in through this area, it doesn't extend way out here like you just saw. Furthermore, we're building in a weak El Nino. The remnants of this old La Nina are kind of going away. A very, very weak El Nino, practically what we call INSO-neutral conditions upcoming this summer. And as a consequence, that doesn't tend to lead toward big-time heat and drought in the middle part of the country. Another thing to pay attention to, the main development region for hurricanes, which I'm kind of shading in over here, is currently cool. If we go back to our previous map, we'd want this area to be very, very warm if we were going to have major heat in the Midwest. And right now, we don't see that. So this is kind of a competing factor for our summer forecast when you compare this to what we just saw with the drought. And what this basically all means is we have low predictability moving forward. So if we kind of look at this analog approach, which we just did, and combine it with some longer term models, what I want to do to finish this up is I want to show you the latest forecasts for June, July, and August as projected by the long-range European model. Now what it's attempting to do is it's attempting to do a few things. It is favoring a ridge in this area, but that's much farther to the west than what we just saw. And the farther west the ridge goes, the better. That's why the heat stays in the Central Plains and potentially in the Pacific Northwest. This flow pattern favors a very active southwestern monsoon, which keeps this region relatively wet. Now, the long-range European model does have some dry biases in parts of the Corn Belt, but when the pattern sets up like this, ridge-riding thunderstorms can move right through this area, erasing the drier conditions there very, very quickly, which means we really have to be careful and not really trust these long-range precipitation forecasts too much. But if the temperature pattern holds as forecast by the long-range European model, which is also shared by the long-range Japanese models, the 8 models run in North America, and another model run out of Australia. Well, when you put all that together and they all kind of paint a similar picture, it tends to point toward, well, Illinois, we may see some warmer than average conditions. But at this point, it's too early to call if we're going to see any major precipitation stresses, which is why we've got to watch this stuff very carefully on a day-by-day basis. But these are the big things that I'm picking up on in the forecast, and hope you found this video informative and useful. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, though. We at Farm Credit Illinois thank you for your attention and hope you look forward to our next long-range weather update. Thank you.